we've got to run, but when you look at the latest Quinnipiac poll of swing states,
and unfortunately sometimes having thoughts of suicide, this is all too common, and it is largely overlooked in the medical field and in the general public. The awareness of it is very low.
So why, if it's so common, is it overlooked by medical professionals who are dealing with this on a, if you say, a common basis?
First of all, it's the way we're trained in medicine. There are highly skilled psychiatrists and psychologists in Colorado and in the United States, of course, but they go through a different pathway of training right out of medical school than do surgeons and cardiologists and primary care physicians. And if you don't specifically train in that area, you aren't necessarily seeing it under your purview of what you do in medicine, and you don't necessarily go look for it. And the sad part of that is that screening for depression is so straightforward and simple. Treating it can be very effective. And what we need to do is break down those silos, and then we need more.
Death toll could rise. Hostilities between the army and Kurdish militants resumed last year after peace talks collapsed. The latest attacks, which claimed the lives of civilians as well as police and soldiers, is likely to generate a harsh response from the military. Peter Kenyon, NPR News.
There's a new symbol of civilian suffering from Aleppo, Syria. A Syrian boy has been filmed sitting in an ambulance covered in dust and blood. NPR's Allison Muse reports the UN Special Envoy for Syria today cut short a meeting on stalled relief aid deliveries and is calling on the U.S. and Russia to help halt the Syrian fighting.
Activist footage from Aleppo shows rescuers handing down a little boy from a building in the dark of night. The scene is chaotic as rescuers armed with flashlights respond to an alleged airstrike on the rebel-held side of the city. The boy, covered in dust, is carried to a waiting ambulance. Activists film him sitting alone, in a daze. He wipes his forehead and, realizing it's covered in blood, quickly wipes it on his orange seat. Moments later, he's joined by another little girl and boy. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says such airstrikes killed 4 civilians in Aleppo City over the past day. Rebel shelling killed 10 civilians, including 2 children. Allison Muse, NPR News, Beirut.
On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrials are down about 2 points at 18,571. You're listening to NPR.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Film Arcade with Don't Think Twice, a comedy about the cost of chasing dreams. From Mike Birbiglia, the director of Sleepwalk With Me, and Ira Glass, the creator of This American Life. Starring Keegan-Michael Key and Mike Birbiglia. Now playing.
This is Colorado Public Radio News. I'm Mike Lang. The troubled Commerce City Police Department is opening itself to a federal review. Voluntary move comes after a string of high-profile misconduct cases. CPR's Ben Marcus reports.
Standing next to Department of Justice officials, Commerce City's Police Chief Lowell Richardson stepped to the press conference podium and struck an optimistic tone.
Today is a monumental day for the City of Commerce City and the Commerce City Police Department.
The Department of Justice will conduct a multi-year holistic review of the police force and eventually offer recommendations for reform. Richardson says police officials and city leaders asked for federal help after several incidents made headlines, in particular an officer who sexually assaulted women during traffic stops.
Bolt now only needs to win with Jamaica's 4x100 metres relay team to complete the feat of winning 3 golds in each of 3 consecutive games. Earlier this week, he retained his 100 metres title. In other athletics results, the United States has won 4 more golds, including Ashton Eaton retaining his decathlon title in a closely fought contest in which he tied the Olympic record. The United Nations has finally acknowledged it contributed to an outbreak of cholera 6 years ago that killed 10,000 people in Haiti. Scientific studies have repeatedly shown that Nepalese UN troops were the source of the disease, but until now, the UN has always denied responsibility. 13 anti-slavery activists in Mauritania have been sentenced to jail over their involvement in a demonstration in June that turned violent. The campaigners received sentences of between 3 and 15 years following accusations of rebellion, armed assembly and membership of an illegal organisation. They've been demonstrating against the forced displacement of residents from a slum in the capital Nouakchott. The activists say these people, the descendants of black slaves, are still living in conditions akin to bondage. World news from the BBC. The aid agency MSF